Have you paid any attention to Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson and their theories about the restarting of humanity?
Mm-mm.
It's a really fascinating field of inquiry and discussion, because it's now starting over time to be backed up by more science. Because there was always this curiosity, like, when did the human race first invent civilization? And the current theory is that it was about 6,000 years ago. It's Mesopotamia, it's Sumer, and these areas, which is where we found the first written language, like first mathematics, cuneiform language. But what they believe is that's a restarting of civilization, and that very likely civilization existed at a very, very high level, somewhere around 11,800 years ago. And that what caused the end of the Ice Age also caused just a mass destruction all throughout the universe, or all throughout the Earth, rather, of particles from space slamming into the Earth. That the Earth goes through these comet storms periodically, and it happens, I think it's every June and every November. And when they go through these clouds of comets, occasionally we get hit by big ones, and there's a lot of evidence for this. And what they believe is that when you're looking at like the ancient Egyptian structures, when you're looking at some structures in Turkey and other parts of the Middle East, you're looking at things that are older than 12,000 years old.
Yeah, well, and I agree with that. I think that it's obvious that technology existed that we don't know anything about today.
Just the construction of the pyramids alone leaned you to that. Like, somehow or another, they were able to do that. And they were able to do that with immense sophistication and insane capabilities. The ability to move stone from hundreds of miles that weighs tons. Yeah. Massive stones cut perfectly, stacked on top of each other, 2,300,000 of them that are perfectly due north, south, east, and west.
Yeah, that's the craziest thing, is that they could understand that at that scale. Like, the
technology was almost we don't understand what they were doing. It's alien, and not alien like human being, not like non-human beings. I think there were human beings that made it, but I think to us, they went in a direction with their technology that's very different than we did. We went in this weird direction of internal combustion engines and silicon chips and all these different things. I think it's very likely that they had comparable, if not better, technology, but it moved in a completely different direction, whether it was using sound or vibration or some other completely undiscovered technology that we have yet to invent, that was wiped out when civilization was knocked into barbarism. And I think that's one of the reasons why you go back in early history, people were so fucking savage, because I think that the people that survived that 11,800 years ago event, I think whatever was left was like fucking Walking Dead. And I think people lived a horrible life for a long time. And I think it was thousands of years of this until we emerged from that and finally started reinventing agriculture and cities and all these different things again. So I think the 6,000 year ago mark, I think if I had to guess, I would imagine that is the first example of a rebuild of civilization that took thousands of years to emerge from horrific slaughter.
It wouldn't surprise me if all that doesn't happen again. Like,
it could easily happen again if we get hit
That
again.
was one of the initial things that really intrigued me reading I think it talks about it in Ecclesiastes, but that everything that's happened under the sun has already happened before and will happen again, that generations that are yet to come will be forgotten about those that come after them. Like, I think just in the same way that we have a summer and a fall and a winter and a spring, it's like, I think human society, just because of our human nature and like our pursuit for whatever it is that we want to, like we just love to create and develop, and like, so we shoot all the way up to the top, and then some tragedy comes along, whether it's self-inflicted or from comets or whatever, and then there we go, right back down to the bottom. We start over again. And like, there is a lot of weird things, like they've discovered a lot in South America recently because of new technology, like the civilizations that existed down there that we had no idea about. Like,
Graham Hancock's talked about that too.
Who knows what's went on, even just on this ground in years past, that we'll never know about.
Oh yeah, for sure. Well, we know quite a bit about Texas, which is a fascinating story in of its own. But what's really fascinating about Texas is they were dominating, like these nomadic tribes were dominating this land for hundreds of years, where people couldn't even settle down. There's an amazing book called Empire of the Summer Moon that's all about Texas and the Comanches and the Texas Rangers. Crazy stories, just crazy. But I think what the Bible is saying rings true, and that if people, they just understood the history of the past from when they wrote the Bible, they had to have known massive catastrophes. But they believe that's what the story of the flood is from. The flood from Noah's Ark and even from the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is even older. It's like they have these similar kind of stories, and they think that these similar kind of stories relate to the immense flooding that occurred after impact. They think that after impact, they know that at one point in time, the United States, half of it was covered with at least like a mile of ice. Some places it was more than a mile, which is just insane to think.
To think now,
Standing here and looking straight up for a mile covered in ice.
Yeah.
I mean, how can you even wrap your head around that? It's so difficult to even imagine.
And it's crazy to think about it existing then, but also that, like, that's, I guess, when I talk about the intelligence of, like, whatever system it is we live in, the fact that the earth is able to self-correct itself over a period of time. It's like, no matter, and even today when we see cycles and things happening, it's like, I don't know that, I'm sure that we could destroy the earth with some of the technology we have now. Like, I fear that we don't, that this sort of proxy war that we've involved ourselves in doesn't escalate into something bigger, because we could wipe society out indefinitely.